Hi, I'm Mike Schreiner, MPP for Guelph and leader of the Ontario Green Party, and I'm honored to join Speak Your Mind. The climate crisis is here, and we must act now before it's too late to protect the people and places we love. After the past year, you would think that people would be demanding urgent action. Almost every month last year, a new record temperature was broken. Throughout the summer, we had forest fires polluting the skies all across North America, droughts driving up food prices and increasing food insecurity, people on the move as climate refugees, as the impacts of the climate crisis become more pronounced, more expensive. The increasing frequency and severity of extreme weather events is costing us in terms of our lives, our livelihood, and our economy. And yet, governments seem to be failing to act with the urgency that's needed to address the climate crisis. And I think part of the challenge is that a 2050 target is too far off into the distance. Saying we'll be net zero by 2050 oftentimes gives government an out to say, we'll get to that sometime in the future. And that's exactly why the Ontario Greens have been pushing for an annual carbon budget that measures and evaluates carbon pollution on an annualized basis with the goal of cutting climate pollution in half by 2030 and being net zero by 2045. But that being said, I actually think we have a deeper crisis, a crisis of caring. It's hard to care for the planet if we don't care for each other. I believe we have an empathy deficit right now. Our me to we ratio is out of whack at a time when we need collective action. The climate crisis has presented the biggest challenge to collective action in our history, precisely at a time when people seem to be more focused on maximizing individual wealth, pleasure, enjoyment, rather than thinking about how do we care for our neighbors? How do we care for each other? How do we care for the planet? How do we care for future generations? So I think a big part of addressing the climate crisis, and we know that we have the technological solutions to address the crisis, is building the political will to do it. And one of the ways of doing that is building caring, connected, climate-ready communities. Communities where people's basic economic needs are met. They have access to an affordable place to live. They have access to quality health care. They have economic security. They can put food on the table, which then enables people to be able to think about the future instead of the immediate need to address basic needs. And so I think part of the climate movement needs to be building a movement around how do we build caring communities where we care for each other, the planet, and future generations. As we build a people-centered political movement that puts pressure on government to act, the kind of pressure that can overcome the huge influence that the big oil and gas lobbies have on politicians and on governments. We're likely never going to have the financial resources to take on big oil and gas. But we can overcome it with a people-powered movement, a movement of people saying that we care for each other, our communities, and future generations. And as part of that caring movement, we are going to demand government action to address the climate crisis, and we're going to demand that action be urgent. As we build the political will to be able to take on the oil and gas lobby and bring forward the kind of transformative changes it's going to take to address the climate crisis. And we need to ensure that the policy prescriptions and the demands that we put on government Do it in a way that addresses the real challenges that people experience each and every day, especially the affordability challenges that so many people are facing due to inflation, economic inequality, ironically, the rising costs of the climate crisis. And so that's the kind of movement the Ontario Greens are working hard to build. And we want to work with others to build that movement because we know that we can address the climate crisis in a way that meets people's basic needs and addresses their affordability challenges. And that creates the political will that says politicians who address the climate crisis will be rewarded, and those who don't will be punished at the ballot box. But how do we do that? Well, first of all, we have to show that electrifying everything is actually going to make life more affordable for people. Driving an electric vehicle costs 1/10 the cost of driving a fossil fuel powered vehicle. Accessing public transit is even less expensive. Living in communities that are designed for walking and cycling to meet many of people's basic needs is even less expensive. So if we can build affordable communities with electrified transportation systems, we can help people save money and build more vibrant, livable, and caring communities. We need to electrify our buildings to ensure that people can heat and cook with electricity instead of fossil fuels. And we need to ensure that it's done in a way that helps people save money by saving energy, providing people with incentives to retrofit their homes and their businesses and other buildings so they can save money by saving energy. And we need to incentivize the electrification of industry in our communities, whether it's steel arc furnaces or building manufacturing of electric vehicles or fuel switching for cement production. Or maybe it's legalizing mass timber buildings, creating low carbon pathways for our industries to succeed, our economy to succeed, so that people have the jobs and prosperity they need to maintain a high quality of life. And so public policies need to be delivered in a way that says, addressing the climate crisis isn't something that just upper middle class or wealthier people can afford, a high priced electric vehicle can afford, but it's something that everyday ordinary folks can afford because we're going to do it in a way that makes life less expensive and more affordable for people. An important way of addressing this is through our land use planning decisions. We can address the housing affordability crisis in a way that says, let's build homes that ordinary people can afford in the communities they know and love. We don't force people into long, expensive, high polluting commutes. That we build communities that are vibrant and affordable, where people can live close to where they work, shop, and spend time with families and friends. As part of that, we need to make sure that we have nature-based solutions to help us address the climate crisis. We know that protecting farmland, protecting wetlands, protecting forests and grasslands will be vital to absorbing excess climate pollution and also mitigating the effects of the climate crisis that's already built in. And we also know that maintaining, enhancing such green infrastructure is actually less expensive than building gray infrastructure to address those needs. Again, creating opportunities that say, by addressing the climate crisis, we're going to make life more affordable, more livable, and provide better and easier access to nature. Finally, we need to ensure that governments not only take urgent action to reduce climate pollution, but we're also going to have to make investments in ensuring that our communities and our infrastructure are climate ready. Because we know there's already climate change built in. We are going to experience the increasing frequency and severity of extreme weather events fueled by climate pollution that's already in the atmosphere. And we have to make sure that we make the investments in ensuring that our infrastructure is resilient to the impacts of climate, to make sure that we protect people's lives, livelihood, and property through nature-based solutions and through investing in infrastructure that's going to be climate resilient. At the end of the day, I think it's critical that we build a people-powered movement that says we have to act before it's too late, that shows that the oil and gas lobbies' efforts to delay action are the new climate denial. That action must be done on an annualized basis, measured through a carbon budget, and done in a way that improves people's quality of life, creates more caring communities, and addresses people's affordability challenges. And I believe that we can build that political movement by having people come together and demanding action and doing it in a way that says we're going to think more about we than me, that says we're going to build the kind of caring communities that people want to live in, and that paints a vision of how we can improve life, improve quality of life by building climate-ready communities. That's the work I do each and every day in the Ontario Legislature. And it's the kind of work that I know that we, as people who want to address the climate crisis, can engage in with our neighbors, our friends, family, and coworkers. The time to act is now before it's too late.